Hello everyone, and welcome to the Motivational Mic. I'm your host, Jacob. At 16 years old, I'm a cancer survivor and amputee, and I'm here to share stories of resilience, hope, and inspiration. Before I get started, I would love to thank you for joining me on this journey. After battling a rare bone cancer and overcoming significant challenges, I've learned that our stories have the power to uplift and motivate others. Through this podcast, I aim to bring you powerful stories from incredible people who have faced adversity and emerged stronger. I want to provide a safe place where everyone feels accepted. Whether you're seeking inspiration or looking for advice on overcoming obstacles, you're in the right place. I can assure you that. Let's dive in and get inspired together.
The Motivational Mic is proudly sponsored by this magic moment.
Meet DJ Adam. Nearly 40 years ago, at just 14, he DJ'd his first wedding, and he's been perfecting the craft ever since. Parties are his passion, and his expertise in creating unforgettable moments on the dance floor is unmatched. When you hire DJ Adam, you're not just getting a DJ, you're getting a personalized entertainment experience. It's your day, your way, with him. From the first conversation to the last dance, DJ Adam is dedicated to making sure your event is everything you've dreamed of. Weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, sweet 16s, milestone birthdays, no matter the celebration, DJ Adam will help you create memories that will last a lifetime. There are no do-overs on your special day, so make the right choice. Hear what some of his clients have said.
Everything was so perfect.
I would recommend him to anyone in a heartbeat.
DJ Adam literally made our wedding.
With over 30 years experience, more than 3,000 parties, and over a decade receiving the best of weddings from the Knot, it's no surprise he is in the Knot's Best of Weddings Hall of Fame. For a day that's uniquely yours, book DJ Adam. Visit thismagicmomentnj.com or call 732-829-2344 today. That's www.thismagicmomentnj.com or 732-829-2344. DJ Adam is based in New Jersey but is willing to travel. Let him make your next event unforgettable.
Welcome to today's episode of The Motivational Mic. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Dr. Seth Kaufmann, PT, DPT, and a standout figure in the field of physical therapy. Dr. Kaufmann is a licensed physical therapist in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who turned personal tragedy into a powerful motivator. After the loss of his father, Dr. Kaufmann channeled his grief into determination, using it as fuel to push forward and establish his own successful business. His journey is a testament to resilience, to find purpose in the face of adversity. Today, I'm excited for our first ever in-person interview. Join me as we dive into Seth's journey, talk a bit about golf, and share meaningful life lessons and values. Hey everyone, right now I am here live with Seth Kaufmann for the first official in-person interview. Seth, would you like to say anything to our viewers before we get started?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Seth Kaufmann. I am a licensed physical therapist in the state of Pennsylvania, and I recently started my own company called SHK PT, Physical Therapy Vertigo Concierge. Now, I've been working with Jake for over a year now as a physical therapist, and I have seen this man grow. I have seen him learn. I have seen him excel in such a short time. And I would say at this point, Jake, it has been such a pleasure to get to know you and work with him. And I would say we're friends at this point.
So, Seth, before we get started, I just want to let all of our viewers know that this is going to be an interview where the tragedy that you've had to face is not really viewable to the public. So I think that this interview is really going to relate to the people that are listening because I feel that you were just like them. You know, obviously everyone goes through tragedy and everyone has things that they have to overcome, but not everything is visible. But I think it's important to know that everyone does go through their own journey in their life, and things do happen to everyone. So, would you like to share something that's happened to you, either in your personal life or your life as a physical therapist?
Yeah, when we talk about tragedy, I really agree with Jake when we say we don't always see tragedy. A lot of times, tragedy becomes invisible. So when we all go through tragedy, part of why we don't like to speak about it is how it affects us emotionally. So when we feel tragedy and we feel emotions around tragedy, we often want to feel those emotions behind closed doors because we maybe fear that people will judge us. We might feel embarrassed about the emotions we're feeling during that time. Now, for me, I've been through tragedy myself. When I was in my last year of grad school for physical therapy, I was on my second week of clinical rotations when I found out my dad needed to go into the hospital. He was an uncontrolled diabetic. He already had some medical issues, but we didn't think that his medical issues were going to turn into what it did. But basically, he went into the hospital. He had a little cut on his toe. It got infected, and it started turning black. And basically, when he was put in the hospital, they said it's severely infected, and they need to amputate his toe. And it's really ironic that we're bringing this up, Jake, given your background. But basically, they took his toe. 1 week later, he starts to show more signs of infection, and they put him back in the hospital. This is Thanksgiving Eve of 2019. He doesn't get his surgery till Black Friday, so he spent his last ever Thanksgiving in the hospital. About 2 weeks later, his second amputation is getting infected, and they basically say, we need to take the whole leg. So they did what we would consider a below-the-knee amputation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had an above-the-knee amputation, correct?
Yes, I did.
So, my dad had 3 amputations in 1 month. After his third amputation, he started to lose his mental status, and the doctors couldn't figure out what it was, but he had kidney failure, and he was on dialysis, so they attributed his change in mental status to dialysis. What they ended up finding out 1 week later is that he had a stroke that they did not see. It went undiagnosed, and he ended up losing his mental status permanently from that point on. 2 weeks later, he had another stroke. 2 days after that, he had a heart attack, and he passed away in front of me in the hospital. Now, to all the viewers out there, Jake's going to hate when I say this. He died in the middle of an Eagles game against the Cowboys. The Eagles won. Even though Jake is not an Eagles fan, you all need to know that it was very special that we were able to watch that last Eagles game together. So, he dies December of 2019. I think a lot of your viewers remember what happens 3 months after that. So in the middle of my dad's funeral, me trying to grieve during this process, trying to finish grad school, the pandemic hits. And back then I figure, okay, well, it's just a pandemic. It's only going to be 2 weeks. I'll go back to clinicals and then I'll graduate. 2 weeks turned into 1 month, turned into 2 months, turned into 3 months. I end up graduating online. I am the only class from Temple University Physical Therapy that did not get a real graduation. So, on top of all of it, I have to study for my boards in the middle of the pandemic. My dad had passed, going through a lot. I take my boards, and I end up having a panic attack during the test. Now, there's plenty of your viewers out there that probably understand what panic feels like, but I didn't really understand it at the time. So in my head, all I thought was, okay, don't pass out, focus, maybe the lightheadedness that you're feeling right now will pass. So I end up failing my boards by 4 points because of my panic attack. I end up passing them 3 months later, start my career, and 4 years later I now have my own company. And I am here to tell all of your viewers that tragedy, just because it consumes you, does not mean that you have to let it consume you. You can overcome tragedy. I myself, I let it consume me for a small period of my life. But I would say the way that I let tragedy consume me is that I needed to grieve through my dad. And until I could grieve through my dad, I don't think I could overcome tragedy. Thank God for the pandemic in a lot of ways, because if that pandemic never happened, I wouldn't have been able to slow down my life and truly grieve through the passing of my dad. My dad's passing has motivated me to do so many things in my life since then. I started my business to honor my dad. And the reason why I started that business is because he always told me that you need to follow your dreams. You need to do what makes you happy. And you need to have fun doing it. And once I started my business, that's exactly what happened to my life. Within a very short time, I started having more fun. I started doing more things for myself. I started seeing the benefits of life. And it all happened because of the tragedy I went through.
Wow. What a story, I do have to say. And I am deeply sorry for your loss.
No worries, man. I let it make me stronger in so many ways.
I'm glad to hear that.
So, Jake, you've heard my story. How do you relate it to your tragedy? What would you say about that?
I mean, I guess just all in all, we both went through terrible things.
Absolutely.
I think we both are finding our paths on life. I think we both found out what we want to do in life. For me, it's wanting to be a sports broadcaster. And I mentioned this a few episodes ago. I would have never learned that I wanted to be a sports broadcaster without this moment in my life. When I was a kid, I always just wanted to play sports. I never knew at the time less than 1% of all people get to be pro athletes. So, I mean, that was news to me when I turned probably 9 years old, I'd say. But as I grew older, I obviously found out that I had cancer. For you, Seth, that moment in your life really turned your attention to starting your own business in physical therapy.
I think the one thing that you're highlighting right now is we all go through defining moments in our lives. It is a very common term to hear this word defining moment. Now, most people, they have negative defining moments in their lives, and that's where we talk about tragedy. But the negative defining moments in our lives usually surround trauma, and it's really hard to overcome trauma. We often carry trauma throughout our lives, but defining moments don't always have to be negative. Defining moments can be positive. So here's a defining moment that I would like to talk about. When I was working for my second to last company before I went off on my own, I met Jake. Jake showed up on my caseload. Jake basically came in because of his amputation. He got to a point in his rehab program where he wanted to start getting back to being a normal kid. Essentially, from what I understood, especially on that first day, all I heard was that you want to get back to playing basketball, you want to get back to hanging out with your friends, you want to get back to bowling, and you were interested in golf. That's all I thought about after that first initial evaluation. Over the next 3 months that we started working together, all we did was focus on things related to basketball and golf. I think you remember jogging around the clinic with your running blade, doing little drills with Sydney in the clinic, shooting the basketball into a trash can, hitting those styrofoam golf balls into the golf net. I don't think Jake would be golfing if it weren't for those moments. Jake is now part of the country club I joined. It's called Lulu Country Club. Shout out Lulu. Shout out John Ross. It is one of the best places in our lives to go right now because not only do we have a place to go, it's beautiful, we have fun, and we actually bond over it now. We make it part of his rehab program. But I am telling you, the defining moment in Jake's life, in my opinion, started when we started working together, and he started realizing, I think I want to become a scratch golfer. Jake, over the past year, has been working on his golf game non-stop, and now he is on the junior varsity team at Upper Dublin High School, and he is playing golf on one leg right now, shooting in the mid-40s, basically competing with most of the golfers at his age. I would say these are defining moments that he needs to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. I never would have taken golf as serious as I am now if I had never met Seth. I was definitely interested at the time that I met Seth, but just him being able to work with me showed me that it is possible to be successful at golf and just have fun overall. I think what Seth does and with his clients is very unique, and I think it's a situation where he truly does care about his clients. He's not just working for the money. He really, truly, when we first met each other, he wanted to focus on getting me to a place where I was happy in my life. And he would come up with exercises on his own time, and he'd come up with drills on his own time to make physical therapy fun, but also useful for me to do.
Yeah, we talk a lot about physical therapy because that's what my field is. That's how we've connected with each other. But I think it goes with anything you do in life. Try to have fun doing it. If you can just find the fun in the things you're doing in life, even if it's simple, even if it's boring, the second you make it fun, that's when you realize it's a meaningful activity and you can make it a defining moment in your life. Sometimes one little event, like maybe going to Topgolf or going to play mini golf with one of your buddies, that could be enough to say, you know what, I think I want to be a scratch golfer. Right, Jake?
Yeah, I agree with that, but not everything has to be about golf either. I think if you're at work and you're struggling, you don't like your job, you're going through a tough time, just try and bond with a coworker. Honestly, I'm sure they feel the same way as you. If you're in school, I'm sure your teachers don't want to be there either. So, just you have to connect with people, and that's what I think personally makes life valuable. The people around you.
I couldn't agree more with that. I'm a big proponent of establishing relationships in this world. And like you said, a huge part of why I love my job is for the connections I make, for the fun I have. Not everything has to be about money in this world. It can be simply about living life to the fullest. So I say this a lot to myself, to people in my personal life, and I'm saying it to you now, Jake. Life is way too short, and we need to live it to the fullest. How would you say you live life to the fullest?
Playing golf on, like as you mentioned.
Haha, we're talking about golf.
Not caring about what anyone thinks, I think, is very important. Do not care about what anyone thinks. You have to be your own person. Life's too short to worry about, oh, well, this person's going to judge me for this, and this person's going to judge me for this. Live your life to the fullest. That's how I like to view it.
Could not agree more.
So, Seth, another thing that I want to talk about, just because you do have a limitation in your life, it doesn't stop you from being the person that you are. Your dad passed, and it made you a stronger person. You followed your dreams, and what do you think it would be for me?
Well, for a lot of your viewers, for anyone that's met you, we obviously can assume Jake has limitations, but the limitations that you assume Jake has, I don't see him that way. So a lot of the limitations I see with Jake really just come with confidence, maybe. Confidence is a good thing to bring up in that I think we all have confidence within us. I think we all lack confidence too in certain ways. But when we can find ways to be confident, it overshadows the limitations in our mind as well. And it goes to essentially how we think mentally. But if we can tell ourselves, for example, yeah, I may have just gotten my leg amputated, but I want to golf. And I want to be a scratch golfer. Now, I hear this all the time from Jake. Jake basically says that he will be a scratch golfer by the end of this year. What would you say about that?
Well, I was thinking about that, but maybe not, because it is very difficult. And for everyone listening, I know we brought up this term scratch golfer a lot. It does mean that on every single hole, technically you were supposed to make even par. So you were shooting what the course is designed to be played as. So if you have a 390-yard hole or whatever, and it's a par 4, you make a 4 every single time, or you make a 3 one time and then a 5 one time. That's basically how it goes, just for everyone wondering. It just means that you're very good at the game.
So when we talk about confidence, when I first started seeing Jake hit the golf ball, he was very critical of himself. If he hit one bad shot, immediately he would say, oh, I'm having a bad day, I'm not having fun. How often do you golfers out there feel like you have one bad shot and your day's ruined? Funny thing about golf is that if you can just change the mindset, tell yourself, you know what? Maybe it was one bad shot, maybe it was just one bad hole. Give yourself that confidence to recover on the next hole, the next shot. I know we're talking a lot about golf, but confidence is a big factor in this life. It prevents you from feeling like you're limited, and it gives you the opportunity to follow your dreams. Now, Jake wants to become a broadcaster. He talks to me a lot about that. The one problem I have with him being a broadcaster is that his dream is to work for the New York Knicks. Now, me as a Sixers fan, I really struggle with this thought. So Jake often likes to trash talk to me about how good the Knicks are, which is true. They are much better than the Sixers are this year. I hate to say it. But I see Jake's confidence come through the second he gets onto a topic that makes him passionate, makes him happy. What would you say about confidence, Jake?
I think you need to believe in yourself. I think you need to believe in the things that you stand for. And I think truly that you need to live your life how you want to live your life. I know I already mentioned that, but please, you have to be confident. You're not going to live to your fullest if you don't have any confidence. and it's true. I would say when I first got my leg amputated, and a few episodes back, me and Dan were talking about how he avoided public places because it was embarrassing for him with his prosthetic leg. If you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out with Dan Kosick. He's an amazing individual. I also used to avoid public places when I first got amputated. I was embarrassed, just anxious, everything about it. People were staring. People still stare, but just overall, it was not a fun experience for me. But over the years, and as I've gotten more and more used to this, I embrace it, and I think that it's actually really cool that I have this amputation, and I don't really care what people are thinking anymore. I'll go out to public places, and I've done this before. Actually, I was up at Syracuse University this year for the pre-college program, and I met a few friends there, and every single time that there would be a large group of people or whatever, I'd be on my crutches with one leg, and they'd pretend to trip me or whatever, and I'd chuck my crutches up in the air, launch it, and make a giant scene, and everyone would start staring and be all concerned, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever. I'm not gonna lie. Seth, you're cracking up over there, but it's true. It really is.
I'm cracking up because I know this kid very well.
And it's true. You just have to find humor within the worst of things.
Little side note, but when we started working together, Jake did this to me, and I was immediately thinking, oh God, got to fill out an incident report, got to tell my boss about it. My rehab aide and I, we're just staring at each other, and he just gets back up. He's like, no, I'm just messing with you.
Wait, when was this?
When we were working together.
Did I fall?
When I first met you. Yeah, you did a fake fall.
Oh.
I used to do this as a kid, so I totally get what he's doing. But I cracked me up once he got up and said, no, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, but the thing is, you have two legs, and it's normal for you to, goof around, but people don't really see that, and they think that everything is so serious, and everything if you have limitations. That's wrong. That's wrong, honestly.
So with all this confidence you've developed over the past few years, you've overcome a lot of challenges. How do you see all of the lessons you learned shape your future and how you want to accomplish your dream?
I think it makes me more mature as an individual. I also think that it opens up doors, Obviously, having cancer isn't the best thing, but I had so many opportunities to connect with people and meet people and figure out what I want to do. That's how I learned I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, introduced to the industry. I'm a motivational speaker. I got introduced to all these things. I think just playing your cards right, honestly, knowing how to play your cards right, knowing how to act in public, knowing how to just be a gentleman. But I do want to say that me going through my cancer journey and everything, I think that it made me way more mature at a young age, and I think that was my loss of innocence and growing up.
So I have one more question, and a nice topic to finish up this interview with, but Jake and I have both had moments in our lives, defining moments. We've talked about defining moments, but defining moments have made us mature very quickly at such a young age. And I'm sure some of your viewers have felt like they've been through certain situations in their lives where they felt they had to mature and grow at a young age. So how would you say you felt like your experience has made you mature so quickly at 16 years old?
Well, I think when I had cancer and when I lost my leg, going through chemo and my surgeries, it's not something that a lot of kids my age face. And it's a terrible, terrible situation, obviously, and I wish no kid ever has to go through this, or no one in general has to go through what I went through, or what anyone else facing a challenge has to go through. But just having to face those challenges, having to literally fight your own body, I think it makes you wiser. I think it opens up more meaning into life, and I think that it teaches you a lot.
Saying a lot of really touching things right now, my man. Yeah, I would love to speak on how I've seen you mature in this past year too. When I first met you, I felt like you yourself were still overcoming this idea that I have cancer mentally. You were still finding your footing on what you wanted to do with your life, where you wanted to go with things. And the second you started swinging the golf club, it's like your whole mindset changed. You realize it's not just about golf, but it's about you now have this goal in mind. You have this focus. You have this sport you want to play. You want to get really good at. It takes a mature person to have to take all of these qualities, consider what's going to go well, what's not going to go well, for the end goal of, I want to be a scratch golfer. Jake is a very mature person at such a young age. And given the emotions he's had to feel over the years, given the experiences he's had to go through and the tragedies he's had to overcome, most 16-year-olds don't go through this. So as I see you mature, as you start to prepare for college, I'm so excited to see how your tragedy has made you such a mature person, even though you've had your fall from innocence at such a young age. You're going to be able to go into college with such a clear head and a good head on your shoulders. So that way, not only will you make good decisions for yourself, not get in trouble, even though that's part of being a teenager and a college kid. We're all going to go through it. Maturity is just something that you have as a bigger quality than most kids your age.
And as my 10th grade English teacher would say, Mr. Cobb, disillusionment. It happened to me. I wanted to be a pro sports player when I was younger, and now I realize that that's not going to happen, and that I still want to be in the field of sports, and I focused on a more realistic goal.
Now, you say this realistic goal. What is your realistic goal?
To be a sports broadcaster.
He's not talking about how he might be a Paralympian golf champion one day. That is exactly where Jake is going to accomplish his dream. So you heard it here today. On Friday, August 23rd of 2024, Jake is now determined to become a Paralympic athlete as a golfer, or at least be able to compete at a high level as a golfer with an amputation. And eventually, I could see this man golfing with everybody else in the world, hopefully on the PGA, maybe the Live Tour. But if he gets on the Live Tour, you heard it here first, Friday, August 23rd of 2024, Jake Orlick will be on the Live Tour one day.
Well, first of all, I just want to be able to compete in the club championship. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. Goals are everything. Goals are what push you forward. So find a goal that you want to focus on, that motivates you. What do you want to do with your life? It doesn't matter what age you are.
And even if you don't know what you want to do with your life, or even if you do know what you want to do with your life, you can always change it if it doesn't work out. And that's the most fun part about living life to the fullest. You can always figure out another path.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you, Seth, when you were a kid, did you have any vision that you were going to be a physical therapist?
When I was younger, I decided that I wanted to be a physical therapist when I was 13, after I tore my own meniscus and had to go through surgery, and I had to be pulled out of sports, and I was very impressed by the physical therapists that worked with me. But I'll be honest, my dream and my goal when I was a kid was to become a scratch golfer. And the funniest part about this interview is that while Jake is going to become a scratch golfer, I will never be a scratch golfer. So once I realized that I'm not going to be a scratch golfer, and it was probably around the age where I decided I want to be a physical therapist.
Well, everything happens for a reason. If you didn't tear your meniscus, maybe we would have never met.
If we never met, I might be a scratch golfer.
Wow. Wow. Well, for everyone listening, this concludes the interview with Seth Kaufmann. Seth, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the Motivational Mic for the first ever in-person interview of the Motivational Mic.
Thank you so much for having me, Jake. You're a wonderful kid, and I hope to carry your bag when you're in the Paralympics one day.
But yeah, until then, stay motivated and stay determined. And we'll see you next time on the Motivational Mic. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of the Motivational Mic. This week's motivational tip: lead by example. Leading by example is a powerful strategy in inspiring and motivating others, and Seth definitely employs this in his everyday life. Consistency is key in leading by example. When you consistently demonstrate the values and behaviors you advocate, and you build trust and credibility. Emphasize integrity. Integrity involves being honest and adhering to strong moral principles. By maintaining high standards of integrity in your actions, you create a foundation of trust and respect. This includes owning up to mistakes, being transparent in your decisions, and treating others with fairness and respect. Encourage open communication. Leading by example also means demonstrating effective communication skills. Practice active listening, provide constructive feedback, and be open to others' ideas and concerns. Demonstrate resilience. How you handle challenges and setbacks can greatly influence others. By maintaining a positive attitude, adapting to change, and persisting through difficulties, you model resilience and problem-solving skills. This encourages others to approach obstacles with a similar mindset. In essence, leading by example involves embodying the ideals you wish to instill in others, creating a compelling and authentic model for them to follow. When people see you consistently practicing what you preach, they are more likely to be inspired to align their actions with those same values and behaviors. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Together, we can spread positivity and make a difference. Join me next time for more incredible stories and insights. Until then, stay motivated and keep pushing forward. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on The Motivational Mic.